got a morning off. Yeah, you did. All right, here we go. We're live on the YouTube. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the RationalInvestor.co's daily brief. This is going to be a funny start to this, but let's see what happens. Make sure we are on YouTube. Here it comes. Hey, we're live. Nice to see Quinn in the YouTube hangout. I guess the YouTube chat says she's first, made it first in line. Great. Sure hope you're getting good value out of this, Quinn. I don't hear much from you. I'm a little concerned about you, but I know you are an intense crypto enthusiast, and I love that about you. Now let's get your goddamn trading plan up and running and get you making some money trading this shit. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I see Steve says YouTubers in the house. I see we got a full room here this morning in the lounge. And we've got our regulars here. I see a lot of them. Mr. Bear's in the house. How you doing this morning, Mr. Bear?
Hey. How are you?
Great. We were just chatting a little bit before the broadcast about how I'm kind of thinking that the pros are actually thinking about taking shots on the long side in some of these markets here this morning. The sentiment out in the street, I feel, is extremely negative right now. People have just basically kind of thrown in the towel. And the irony of it all is I actually think with regard to Bitcoin, it feels like coming out of that conference, it was almost like a buy the rumor, but we just didn't get much of a pop because, you know, people are kind of exhausted after the past 4 or 5 months. And then following the conference, there just wasn't any buyers on the other side of it. There's no fundamental drivers. Why would you buy Bitcoins? And so as a price, and then of course, you know, add insult to injury, CNBC goes out and paints a big fat target on the back of their heads at $7,500, and all of their, I still wonder. Actually, somebody put out a post on Twitter, one of those polls saying, what do you think CNBC is doing? Do you think they're trying to make money? Do you think they're trying to increase services, or do you think maybe there's some other agenda going on here? And I wonder, with the fact that they hired the Nautilus coin guy, that's basically the definition of a shit coin, as their quote unquote expert. And now they got this guy, taking relatively marginal trade ideas and probably destroying a lot of people who are like following CNBC's picks on Bitcoin. And you wonder, what is their motivation? It almost feels like they actually are trying to undermine this space, but try to make it look like it's professional and, high grade and all that. But, whoever's running the show wants people who's taken their advice to lose money. So, paint a big fat target on your head at $7,500, and lo and behold, here's Bitcoin sitting $7,500 with the low print here, 7267. Boom, and you're done. So I don't know. It feels a little suspicious out there, and also too, like I said, the sentiment is gone very negative. I suppose as the Bear talks to us about what he's seeing in the market, we can sort of piece together the Bitcoin story. I will simply say, in my eyes, that I think we're at pretty important level here, sort of on the medium term. Some of these longer term trend lines that I had on my charts, we're sort of speaking to that. Now, of course, I never can find them in the right place. But before I get into all that, I just, that was just like the segue here was, before I get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. Lincoln and James are still kicking around the idea of the sort of, I guess, mid-America. What do you call that? I think they want to get together in Arkansas, but somewhere around there. Kind of a TRI retreat. Tennessee, is that where it is? Hey, Lincoln, nice to see you. Tennessee, right? So, if you are in that neck of the woods, and no pun intended, and you are interested in participating in the group event, let Lincoln know. And of course, the more people that participate, the better, the rate. So, and where's Bugra? Is Bugra here? If Bugra is in New Mexico with you, then maybe the two of you can hightail it up there. Anyway, I'm not quite sure what dates you are. It was interesting. The UK people had reached out to me, and they really would like to know when I'm thinking about planning on going there. They have a whole bunch of dates in July that they'd like to get together, and it looks like it's the end of July that they'd really like me there. So I'm going to try and shoot to be over on the other side of the puddle by the end of July, that sort of last week of July. So I'm kind of thinking that I wouldn't mind like sort of, working my way down to Seattle and then just hopping on the train and just sort of making a cross-country jaunt to maybe pick Julian up the end of July. So I don't know whether you guys can maybe meet like mid-July. Oh, you're going to the Vancouver the end of July. Oh, actually, well, oh, geez, no, that might, yeah, well, but see, if that's the end of July, I got to be in Europe at the end of July. Anyway, we'll figure something out. Anyway, if you're here on the West Coast around that time, then maybe we can travel together. That would be actually really cool. So anyway, long and short of it here is if we could somehow sort of coordinate that, if it is possible. I don't know the exact dates for myself right now, but if you guys can give me an idea, if it's somewhere mid-July kind of thing you were thinking, or maybe I'll catch you on the backside, maybe like mid-August or something like that, that would be awesome. But I just wanted to make reference that don't lose focus, people. We've got, hundreds of people on the site. Throw 5-10 people together and you can make a really nice little long weekend or something like that for everybody. So anyway, wanted to give another shill for that because I think that's a great idea for those people in the Midwest US. Ian, yeah, we should make a reference. Raf just recently joined the TA pool. I think he's a great sort of role model for level oneers. If anything, I love the fact that this guy used to fucking drive a truck. I mean, he's probably your perfect, hey man, I'm from the streets and I learned the school of hard knocks. I love that about Raph. So, we have a whole slew of new level oneers. Obviously, right now you guys are just getting settled in, but I'm very proud to, announce formally that Raph has joined the pool, and Ian is trying to make his way into the pool. But Ian, all I ask is just fill out the form exactly as Julian asked, okay? You'll get there. I know you will. You get some. And also we need a picture from you, right? So get working on that. And then also Warwick, too, said that he's going to join the pool, too. So hats off to Warwick. So all of those guys. And what I really like about RAF is they are doing the level 3ers right now are working really hard on options. And, before we take off, Thomas, and anybody who's on the site that does options, we found a really cool little site. And all we did was we just said options volume screens. I probably should add it to the database, but I just wanted to make reference to it here. Investors.com, everybody, of course, who's taken the level 1, Axel, the connection of TRI and Investors Business Daily, right? I asked the level 3ers this, and none of them in the group tutorial knew the damn answer. And I was like, you guys want to be TAs in my school? Anyway, Investors Business Daily was founded by William O'Neill. William O'Neill, of course, was the creator of the CanSlim model that we teach in the level 1 program. And it's an awesome way to make money from trading stocks. And the whole reason why he bought this newspaper, it used to be called like the Chicago Star or something like that. The whole reason why he bought the newspaper was he wanted the historical database of all their stock data. And he went through and he built the CanSlim model. So anyway, that's here nor there. It was kind of a funny side. But what I was really impressed with was now how the hell did we do this yesterday? Do you remember, Rav? Anyway, they had the maybe it was screens. Oh god, I can't even remember how we did this. But anyway, on this here we are. They have a list of the highest call volume and the volume percentage change in calls, and we went through and looked at some of these charts, and it was so cool. Like there was one that we looked at where there was a massive amount of put buying. I remember it was like Zynga or something like that. And it was like the absolute perfect, I think it was like a bearish crab or a bearish bat or something. So, like Thomas, I wanted to mention this for you. I'll throw this site on the site, but man, this is some damn great correlation, cross-correlation data about options. And so that's kind of like the fun and games at the level 3ers. So that's sort of what we were doing in our tutorial yesterday as we were having fun in options land. So anyway, wanted to mention the fact that Raf has officially joined the crew. Warwick is shortly coming. And of course, Ian should be in the pool. It's just Ian's a challenge. We'll get there, Ian. Oh, wait, just hang in there. Mike, superstar. This guy, I swear, he gives me like side assignments. He probably could give. He could easily create a full-time job for me just reading all the research that he finds for me. Yes, he's given me a whole bunch of new stuff that I should research. No, I haven't had the opportunity to look at it. Mike is the guy who first mentioned what's your guy, that site that you love? And I know, Thomas, you also like to follow it too. But the Julia DeClerc, all that stuff. Anyway, post it if you. I can't remember off the. Yeah. Anyway, so the point here is Mike keeps bringing me more stuff to read. I don't know whether I'm allowed to disseminate that last report that you gave me, but it was yet another sort of testament to the fact that we're coming to the end of this cycle. It's sadly the public is going to feel most wealthy. They're going to feel most optimistic. You remember? I don't know whether you guys do. Does any of you guys remember the King of Cars? That guy. He was like running a car dealership in like Detroit, and he had a TV show, and it was like for like a really just a run-of-the-mill car dealership, and they had like one of the guys would dress up like a blue genie and like do their spa commercials and stuff. So that was the top of the last cycle. So that's the kind of attitude that we actually want to see out of the public. Euphoric. I might argue that we're seeing that in crypto. And this summer I still, believe it or not, I haven't given up on the idea that the summer can still enjoy a nice crypto rally here. But everybody's got to understand, there's nothing guaranteed in this business, and the market's just going to do what it's going to do. That's my opinion, and of course what Brian thinks of people's opinions. Anyway, the point that I just want to make is that there's lots of anecdotal evidence. The writing is on the walls. We all know the duration of business cycles. We all know that recessions love to happen in years that end in 8s, 9s, 0s, 1s, and 2s. So here we are, 2018. I think that because of the election in the States coming up this fall, I can't see them breaking the market ahead of that. But you never know. My hunch is that all of things like yield curves and stuff like that will invert, through the summer and the fall, basically saying, yep, we're heading towards recession, right? And then that sort of paints, usually the recession kicks in sort of 6 months following that yield curve inversion. So now we're starting to think maybe like, let's say, March, April, May, we start breaking in earnest and things start really hitting the fan next year. So, and that would be 2009, right? 19, right in that sort of window. Not shocking. So, thank you, Mike. And then we continue to build this story. What's really interesting, though, this is kind of a dovetail. We can always be hunting for ideas, trade ideas, and if anything, it's good to have like cross correlation. I do actually like the idea that as we sort of work our way through this sort of May, June trough, which is very seasonal for the market, do we ultimately bottom right now, the very end of May, beginning of June, or do we bottom end of June? It's going to be somewhere in this area. I actually like the idea of thinking about hunting longs heading into the end of the summer if you're playing the market sort of that 3 to 6 month horizon. And it was really interesting that one site member, whoops, that's not what I wanted to show you. It's, where did that chart go? Oh, that's bizarre. Thought I just clicked on the link. Where'd it go? Well, let's try that again. Where was I? Let's try that again. Here we go. Where's it going to load? boom, and it goes over there. All right, let's see if we can pull that over there. There we go. All right, so one site member actually was like, well, Brian, I think I see a setup here. And I was actually, you're right. What's really cool, and this is, PepsiCo, right? From what I understand, they were in the shitter, earnings suspect, battles with Coca-Cola. They've obviously taken market share. How many people are drinking soft drinks these days? Are people drinking eating Doritos potato chips? Because, PepsiCo is a pretty big company. Are they drinking Red Bull, right? They got a whole bunch of different business model streams, income streams, whatever. And I think I heard the scuttlebutt recently is maybe this the company might even go up for sale. So often, when you hear about, oh, they're going to break up the company, then all the sort of internal components, well, maybe Doritos is not really being properly reflected in the stock price. Well, maybe somebody's going to be able to buy the Doritos franchise. Maybe they've always wanted the Doritos franchise and they're going to bid up for that asset. Who knows? But we often see that sort of, when the negativity has been priced into the stock and then the stock goes and forms a nice little bottom, if we can go down and look down and see, oh, yeah, we got a bit of a momentum divergence coming in here. And we can see, Willie is nice and washed out and stupid. And gee whiz, what a surprise, in comes a W. And, we just take the very simple range. This is just going back to January. And just ask what's a 50% rule. Gee whiz, what a coincidence. The 50% rule is sitting right at a major POC, right? That is the POC. It's almost like the market's giving you the finger, right? You can see lots of business to be done up here. And really, I would argue probably lots of business to be done up here. Does it make sense, El Tangonator-wise, that a trade idea might develop here? Actually, I was pretty impressed with this nice little OBV turn. I think that came in when we started hearing about, oh, the company's for sale. Don't think it's a good idea to chase here. But I definitely like the idea of, if we get any sort of price weakness down against these lows, cute little gap right down in here. And my assignment for the level 3ers is let's go and take a look at SOF ideas. What do you think, Raf? Do you want to add this one to the kitty? And let's go on bar chart and let's pull up the options charts and see if we get any, and your charting interface and stuff. So number one, hats off to Christian. And I mentioned this in yesterday's video, and this is why I'm going out of my way to mention this today. Bitcoin popping here. Well, coming off the lows. I know you're kind of going, Brian, you're talking a little too much today. Shut the fuck up. We'll get there. We'll get there. I really wanted to mention Christian. He did a lot of hard work, and he asked me specifically for his feedback on this. And in yesterday's show, I specifically said that I was going to make reference to his idea. And this morning I said, Brian, I saw this little note, Brian, what are you doing? So I had to go out on the record and formally talk about this. I apologize, Thomas, but Christian definitely needs his due. And I even pointed it out in the the German group and stuff like that. I was like, you guys are getting it, right? And this, this is my chart, and hopefully you can see all the logic behind it. Christian was the one who came to me with the idea, and it just shows to me that he's getting it. This is a hard thing to get. Now, I don't know whether there's any guarantee that this trade's going to work. I don't know. Nobody does, right? That's a trader's life. But frankly speaking, this is why I love options. If we throw $100, $200 at an options idea here, can that option turn into $200, $300, $400, $500 maybe? Is that a risk worth taking? I think it is. And the point here is that I was so impressed that Christian gets it. Huge, huge hurdle for him to get over. Really, Christian, now you get it. All you got to do now is rinse and repeat and do this for the rest of your life. Okay, enough blibber blabber. I apologize. Really important message I wanted to convey this morning. It's 23 minutes past the hour. I've talked way too much. All right, Mr. Bear, where do you want to take us today?
We got to go to we got to go to Bitcoin land and talk about what happened yesterday. Lots of big news coming out from Coinbase.
Okay.
Let's skip ahead to the most important news from Coinbase, which is they have acquired the trading platform known as Paradex. And Paradex is a decentralized exchange that they claim to be able to trade hundreds of tokens, quote unquote. I don't use Paradex. I've never been on there, but they have 10 employees. And again, the whole idea is that the idea was that decentralized exchanges are coming to Coinbase, but that's not exactly what the message that Coinbase was sending. So yesterday we saw the 0x token, 0x coin go not quite double, but very close. I don't know if you saw that take off yesterday, Brian. Let me see if I can bring up the chart here. But Payman was in the lounge. I think it was probably just after the daily brief, but we were like, how high is this thing going to go? And it stopped, I think, at 0.02 BTC. Let's see here. Yeah, and it's still trading at 0.00018. So this thing popped up on this news, and everyone's getting all excited. Oh, decentralized exchanges are finally coming mainstream, and we've got to buy all the decentralized exchange coins. And then Coinbase came out, and their new CTO, this guy, shows up, and he publicly comes on CNBC, has like a 5-minute interview, and he talks about Coinbase's plans to bring hundreds of tokens to Coinbase. And the meat of his message is essentially that, no, we are not going to be a decentralized exchange, because Brian Kelly came on, knight in shining armor. I know everything about cryptocurrencies. And he goes, so you're basically saying you're bringing on a decentralized exchange to your platform? And he goes, no, it's going to be a bulletin board system. And a bulletin board system is distinctly different from an exchange, because regulators have very different definitions for what the two of those are. And it seems like the strategy and route that Coinbase is going on is they're going to be classifying this exchange system as a bulletin board. And bulletin boards are available in the stock market, and you can go and check those out. But Coinbase wants to do the same thing here to avoid regulation and allow users to trade hundreds of these different quote unquote tokens, as he continues to reference. Now, there's a caveat to all this. They haven't gotten the blessing of regulators yet. So all of this is going to be available to anyone who has a European Coinbase account. But those of us in the United States with a US-based Coinbase account, we have to wait to get the blessing of regulators before we can start trading on here. So this was big news at first, and then everyone was just like, oh, okay, so this isn't live in the US. This is interesting. So that's where it's at right now.
Development, though.
It's certainly an interesting development. It'll bring a lot of great attention into the space, and if anything, have some nice positive news in a space filled with negativity after consensus.
You guys remember what Axel, do you remember from last term what I told you about what I would suggest if somebody came to me with a bulletin board idea down in the States? What's the funny line that I always use with regard to bulletin board stocks down in the States? Does anybody remember? The directors of the company have... Anybody finish that statement? So if anything, this is perfect.
Big hairy ones.
No. Oh, Brian remembers. That's good. That's good. Oh, Raph remembers. That's good. Benjamin remembers. Good. They have absolutely no legal obligation to tell you the truth whatsoever, and it's even written right on their fucking prospectuses. So if anything, that's a perfect segue for crypto. That's the way they're going to get around the SECs. They're going to say, well, we're just going to create bulletin board exchanges, just like you have the pink sheets. Oh, that's great. Actually, you should put that screen picture of that guy. That guy's smart. That guy, he knows how to play the game. Now, the good part about it for the bulletin board is that, filing requirements are pretty cheap. So, $5,000-$10,000 to file on the bulletin board, and you can do whatever you want. So, hats off to them. That's a smart way to play it. They're figuring out how to make the connection of shitcoins and bulletin board stocks. So that's good. Oh, that's great. Yeah, bulletin board stocks pump hard too. They pump just as hard as crypto. So yeah, that's cool. All right. Didn't mean to interrupt, but that is an interesting development. And that's the kind of thing that's going to lay the groundwork and lay the floor for wherever this market does ultimately base. And it just goes to show that crypto is not dead. It's not going anywhere. And they will figure out a way around these problems as we sort of go down over time. So that's cool. That's actually a really interesting development. And you know, what's the symbol for that ZX thing? I keep putting it
ZRX.
in. ZRX?
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. You know, I looked at this and what I noticed was, isn't that interesting? Relative to dollar, it didn't really do a hell of a lot, eh? Actually, this is an interesting chart because, you know, price action wise,
Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. Price action wise, and where's Mr. Meow? Is Mr. Meow here today? Anyway, he's good at keeping me in line. Price action wise, nothing really startling. I mean, if anything, what I see here, if you're wanting to analyze this, is who can tell me what this is? You should be able to tell. All of you should be able to look at this and go, okay, I see what's happening here. So this is a pretty cliche pattern, and usually when we see megaphones, we should probably just leave them alone because they're dangerous. So in essence, the event caused a lot of stir both on the bull and bear side, and you can see they're just washing out participants on both sides, but it just sort of translates into a hurry up and do nothing. The profile, you know, Mr. Hoagland would be like, hey, gee whiz, this profile still needs a lot of work. I do like, though, that event obviously garnered quite a bit of buying interest, and that actually put a W in OBV. And from a, you know, impetus perspective, this higher high in volume, that's important, right? Because you can see there was trouble brewing, right? The bulls were kind of backing away. It looks like the bears backed away very quickly here, knowing that something was up here. Cute little momentum divergence in MACD. Willie, you know, Willie's probably speaking to the megaphone. We're not really overbought. We're not really oversold. We could chop around here quite a bit. I was a bit surprised, you know, like looking at it versus Bitcoin, that we didn't break out to new highs. And actually, when the market got up into those previous highs, that's, you know, when I saw you guys chatting about it in the lounge and stuff, and I was kind of like, well, okay, it looks nice, but, you know, break it out through the top, please. And you notice that it just basically stalled right as it got up near the old highs. So if anything, the traders out there, you know, Brian and his candle body peaks, he loves those candle body peaks. I could see the traders probably started hitting it right up in this area here. I was a bit surprised to see that they couldn't break out through the top. So, you know, if anything, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a nice consolidation here. And if this is a bull, then create a bot setup. And my hunch is if we do bot levels, just even off of this Bitcoin chart, my hunch is the 25 entry level is going to be somewhere right around here. So we got boobity boo and boobity snoo and boobity coo and Rubity Chew. There we go. So, oh boy, what a mess, eh? You know, me personally, I would prefer to just let this thing settle down a little bit and give us some sort of sideways action here to get us in off of this level. It is interesting that this level here is now the bot entry level. But for me, I think I got to let this thing settle down. And I wasn't impressed by the fact that they couldn't break it out to new highs. Now, go break it out to new highs, then I suppose we can start talking AB equals CDs. For a trade, I think we want to keep an eye on this 17,420 area. And keep in mind, too, that this tail down here, still open business. V bottoms like to be tested. So I'll shut up, talking way too much. Sorry. Okay, where do we go next?
Coinbase launched Coinbase Pro. So anyone that uses GDAX You can still use GDAX, but they want to slowly migrate people over to Coinbase Pro, which is supposed to be catered to the institutional investors, just like GDAX was. It's supposed to be a much nicer user interface with a little more functionality as far as managing your positions, but otherwise just a nicer platform with the same fee structure as GDAX had, which is 0 fees if you are a market maker as opposed to a market taker. So if you set a limit order, you're not going to be charged a fee. However, if you are going to be buying at the market price, you pay between 0.1 and 0.3% of your trade amount. So, I mean, same thing, different user interface. I logged into it. It's nicer. I mean, big freaking deal. I think they just want to have it under the same umbrella name of Coinbase because people are like, oh, GDAX is different than Coinbase. And it was, I guess, confusing, especially to people who are new in the space. I know when I was trying to get friends and family members involved in crypto, they couldn't understand how they could log in with the same Coinbase credentials in GDAX as they could as Coinbase. So this probably streamlines that. And other than that, that's the news from Coinbase. There's one other thing that I want to cover regarding Bitcoin that I think is very important, and that's that the CFTC is launching a probe into price manipulation. So yesterday we covered the NASAA, which is the North American Securities Investigations Department, where they were investigating ICOs, and they put the kibosh on McAfee's ICO startup. Well, now the CFTC is coming in and they're saying, hey, we want to look at how Bitcoin price is being manipulated because we feel like the price is being potentially kept down. And they want to see how this has happened. And they're looking specifically into order spoofing. And what order spoofing is essentially is if you put a big order, say, you know, Bitcoin's at what, 7,500 and change right now. Let's say I put a huge order at 7,600, like $10 million worth of Bitcoin, and everyone sees that order on the exchanges and they're like, oh shit, price is never going to go up and it's never going to breach that 7,600 level because who's going to be buying $10 million worth of Bitcoin in this bear market? So everyone starts shorting and the market starts going down. And once the market goes down enough, what happens is the guy who put that order there just pulls it. And he really never had any intention to have that order filled. That's called spoofing. And the CFTC did a lot of work years ago in the futures market and other equity markets to make sure that this kind of order spoofing doesn't happen. It was pretty much made illegal, and people were given hefty fines for doing crap like that. And they still are.
Yeah, there was a gentleman who caused a crash. Julian probably remembers this. It was back in I think it was 2014. Where a gentleman caused a crash in March, and the markets went into free fall. And there was a guy that did a video on YouTube. It's 7,500, 7,000 through the 6,000 handle. The market's crashing 6,500, 6,200. He just is just fucking just panicking. Do you guys remember that video? It was so fucking awesome. I should have recorded it, but anyway, it was a guy who used to call they call him the squawk box on the pit floor. Great video. But anyway, the guy that caused that, it was determined that he was just firing orders at quote unquote spoofing, and they just threw the fucking book at him. And I was surprised. He was only like a 25, 30-year-old guy working on a trading desk, and they just threw the book at him. But technically, this isn't quote unquote illegal. If anything, I'd say it's immoral. But man, I used to see this on the crude dom all day long. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, but it is interesting that this is happening because technically these are unregulated markets, and I don't know how an American regulatory firm can go over to OKCoin and say stop doing that. OKCoin goes fuck you.
Yeah. That's the other issue, is how are they going to impose sanctions? I mean, sure, they have authority, but when it comes to Asian exchanges, I think it's a totally different story. But it's interesting because the end of this article talks about, if anyone remembers, Spoofy was a trader who was allegedly placing $1 million orders without executing them. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if this is what triggered the CFTC into looking into shit like this. Because you remember governments work a lot slower than normal people do because they have more red tape to work through. So I'm interested to see what happens here if they can actually do anything. I mean, the Winkle-Dinkles came out and said that they partnered with NASDAQ with their surveillance program to monitor suspicious trades as serving as a self-regulator for themselves. I don't know how good that's going to how much good that's going to do, or if they're even going to publicly say, hey, we found this guy putting $1 million orders and pulling them off right, with the intention of moving the market and really no intention of filling his orders. I don't see an exchange coming out publicly and saying something like that, because it would be a buyer beware environment, and that's something that I think exchanges want to stay away from. So that's the Bitcoin news. I think we should probably talk about some technicals here and go into what we see in the marketplace. Brian, you want to start off with what you're seeing here?
All right. Thomas just gave me a video I have to watch later on. Thanks. Thanks, Thomas. I'll take a look at that in a bit. That's Thomas Moran. What the hell am I seeing? Well, the Gann angles, I think, really sort of spoke that when we lost this range in here, we kind of, the leaving the speed bump. If you get market structure, yeah, things can go into sort of free fall. I think we saw that, and to a certain degree on Bitcoin, but I actually think we really saw it on Ethereum yesterday. It was quite remarkable when we lost this wedge. All hell just broke loose, and now we're actually on the underside of this arc. So now the arc right now is probably going to be resistance. And if I was going to draw my funny little shapes, I think probably Ethereum is stuck in this range for the time being. So it is interesting to see how price came down, probed into this level, and now we're just putting in a big doji here. And same sort of thing on Bitcoin. I would just, probably what the market is saying here is the Asians and the Europeans are undecided. This is really a North American story. And if the Americans want to sell more, then, basically we're going to follow their guide. So when I woke up this morning, Bitcoin price was a little bit uppy. And really, it's just a question of what's the Americans' appetite right now. Big doji, and frankly speaking, I wouldn't mind if we just finished the day as a doji and everybody just sort of caught their breath and just said, okay, what is it we really want to do here? If I've been enjoying this study here, comparison of OKCoin and BitMEX, and seeing, because OKCoin has the you liquidate me, I liquidate myself. They have slightly different levels, and I think Thomas was speaking to that also recently. I noticed that, MEX and all the cash markets, they've come back down into reload zones off of their consolidation bottoms, but OKCoin hasn't. So how does this have to play out? I'm not quite sure. I think, Julian's recommendation over the weekend that the trend is still down, and my sort of institutional moving average bias still is very bearish. There's nothing really bullish about this right now. And you can see short-term resistance right now sitting at about 8,000. That's probably going to be psychological resistance now on the upside. That bias really hasn't changed, and there's no reason to consider that changing. So it's going to be a slog here, guys. No doubt about it. One good thing that I do like seeing is that I like to use my accelerated RSI. It's a 7 period, so it kind of matches similar to Willie and the Williams percentage R. You can see that it is now officially oversold on the daily basis. I was hoping to see signs of divergence, though, but you see lower price and lower RSI. There really isn't any sign of a bottom here. If anything now, though, this is kind of like being up in here. Instead of us thinking about buying windows, we have to think about, okay, when is this thing going to roll over? And up in here, when RSI got into the overbought camp, okay, how does the divergence set up and when is this thing going to roll over? So I think for the time being, that's sort of where we are. We're way, way too late to be sellers. And it's still a bit early to be thinking about actually calling bottoms. If we look at the 4 hour, the 1 hours, they've all hit their bearish bot objectives. They hit them yesterday. And I think this event was this, as I said earlier, CNBC put a really big fat bullseye on the back of the market, calling 7,500 stop. And I think the market just said, following that conference, there is no real new fundamental driver to be buyers of Bitcoin. And the market just went into free fall right after those levels. I think now, if anything, and I was slightly encouraged this morning to see this, yes, the 4 hours are still working away. Their moved stop to scratch levels hit. So guys like Grim, they would be all sort of breathing a big sigh of relief. At least they're not going to lose money on this trade now. It's interesting to see on OKCoin, the move stop to trailing has not been hit. But on the MEX contract, stop to trailing has been hit. So it'd be interesting. I don't know whether Grim's around. He has been taking these setups as we've been going along here. It'd be interesting to see what his sort of mental set is on that kind of setup. As I said just a moment ago, I was pleased to see that we got a W coming in on the 4 hour RSI. So like I said, kind of here on the dailies, we have gone oversold. So maybe we've kind of gone a little too far in this push. And you can also see on the hourlies, especially on the MEX contract, which is interesting, right? Because maybe what it means is that China still has one more dump. We do have a holiday weekend coming up here. How does that affect the American sort of thinking? They're going to be gone for 3 days. Could we have some really wild, you liquidate me, I liquidate myself kind of price action through the weekend with the adults all gone for the holiday weekend? That's totally possible. I also noticed, too, on China, something that bothers me is that the volume, the selling volume is still accelerating here. Now, I don't know whether we're allowed to believe this because remember, TradingView erroneously reported the volume a little while ago and we all got spooked by it, but it turns out it was an error. So it'd be just interesting, Thomas, if you could confirm that, yeah, the selling pressure is still very strong here on OKCoin. And
can you make that full screen? I'll confirm it right now.
Yeah, like this hourly chart, you see, like this bothers me, right? We're getting stronger and stronger selling push here. You can see as we came into this bottom here, the selling push as we were actually making lower lows was getting less, right? These bars were getting less volume impetus, blah, blah, blah. You get a little bit of buying interest and the market takes off. So
that's here, right. That corresponds with the actual exchange data.
All right. So if this is the case, be prepared, guys. We could still have a little fuck you-ery against these lows because what we need to see for us to know that the bottom is in is we got to see the bears go away. So anyway, let's keep an eye out for that. As I sort of said off of, RSI studies on the daily chart, we're just not ready to quote unquote call bottoms yet. I think off of the lower time frames, I see the potential, like this is Finex for our day trading group. Something that jumped out at me, which is a bit bothersome, is you can see this was the CNBC stop event. And I was wondering, I posted in the lounge, man, that's a big ass tail and that's a V bottom. It's going to have to be tested. They came down into that level. And, Brian, he loves his candle body low trade locations. It makes sense why the market turned there. It tried to rally out of there, and then I guess this is through this is London kill zone right in here. The London boys came along and said, fuck you. So anyway, one more big stop run. We actually put in a pretty tight double bottom here. And you can see that the bullish divergence is really trying hard to come in. And unlike OKCoin, you can actually see there was a big volume breakout here on Finex. So I'm not quite sure how this is all playing out. Is there some unfinished business on OKCoin that needs to be taken care of before a bottom can be put in? And of course, this is a megaphone, so we can't really have a lot of faith in this as well. And I would like to see, like off of the hours, that these hourlies, these divergences come in. They're not quite there yet. And off of the hourly, this volume, yes, we have a divergence in volume. I like that, but I'm a little concerned why OKCoin looks different. All right, so there's sort of your spiel. Like I said, we're coming into really interesting trade locations. Some names, and I don't know, do you want me to mention things like Litecoin, what we were talking about, Thomas?
Before we move on to that, let's just do the roadmap for
Okay, yeah, all right.
2014.
So that's my Bitcoin spiel. So let's now I want to hear what Tom is on Thomas's mind.
I'm just going to take OKCoin off the table here. I don't like that data feed, and I think it's screwing with the market. I think the market's going to follow the other big exchanges, and if OKCoin wants to go back into its 78.6 down at $6,000 and complete a full retracement here or test these reload zones down here, that's fine. But I think that we're going to go into backwardization on the forwards market before the spot market even follows suit. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen here, just to make sure, just to kind of straighten out the action that's happened in the beginning of April. So
we got $38 to work with. It's getting close, eh?
30. Where do you see $38? Oh, on the spreads. Okay, gotcha.
Because you were talking about backwardization, right?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. So you're seeing we're positive 38. I'm using Bitcoin forwards and Bitstamp, so it looks like there's a $67 premium, right. But that's definitely evaporated here. This little consolidation period just dumped and made a upside down rounded top here. But as far as the roadmap, comparing back to 2014 and 2015, the bottom panel on my screen, I'm going to get rid of this, and I hope let me make sure the heads are not showing so that you guys can see this. There we go. All right, so bottom panel is 2014, top panel is present day. You can see what happened after the death cross. Price rallied into the 200 period moving average, which is the red line, and then slowly rolled over, tagged 38.2, retested the 200 period moving average, and then it was just a horrible, horrible 6 months before price decided to try to find a bottom in the beginning of 2015 before moving higher. Now, this is where these roadmaps are starting to enter a fork in the road. Present day is certainly forking away from what happened in 2014, in that we're just going for the reload zone area. And 2014 took for freaking ever to do that. I would almost be as bold to say that this could be a good sign that we're taking all this crap out of the market, that we're going back down into a reload zone. And if we can put in that bottom and march our way back up, that's what we want to see. We don't want to see this long 6-month period where everybody loses interest in the market. I mean, some of us would like to see that, where price would go down to $3,000, $2,000 and have some nice cheap coins. But I mean, I don't, you guys really have to ask yourself, do you have the patience for 7 months of this? You're going to be able to pay attention and have the discipline to wait for that $3,000 area, because it was a pain in the ass when I was going through this in 2014. It hurt. And it was, anyway, this is where we're seeing
trader's life.
Yeah, exactly. And most of you who are new to this community, you haven't been through this. You haven't seen 7 months of just downturn, of just horrible action. I mean, granted, it's been 5 months since the top of the market, but we've been oscillating quite well, and this is not what happened through 2014, 2015. So anyway, this is, as Brian said, where you want to start thinking about potential reversal areas, not buying anything, no signals have come in yet, and wait for your signals, wait for your trades, wait for it to come in. This is a holiday weekend. We'll wait and see what happens there, and hopefully we have some good news at the other end of the weekend. Brian wanted me to talk about a Litecoin trade that I took last night. I, for the first time, decided to take a Litecoin forwards 3-month forward contract on OK Exchange, and I bought late last night in the 118 area, and then I decided to sprinkle some bids down around the 116 and 117 area, and set my stop at the bottom of this range here at 113 or 110, whatever it is down here. And I got filled overnight, and I'm sitting here at an average position of around 118 or 119 here, and we're sitting at 124. So where's my target at? My target's going to be anywhere between the 50% level and 61.8. I'm going to have to drill down to lower timeframes to show you. but the areas of traffic that you would expect price to potentially reverse at are not only here at 128, again at 130, and then you have a clear sale up to 136. So my plan right now is that since we've cleared this area here, I have to reevaluate at the 50% level as to whether or not I'm going to stay in the trade. I can't, I don't know, can I move my stop to scratch here yet? I think I'm only at 20% profit on this trade so far at 10x leverage. So it's a different game for me because I'm used to trading on the Bitcoin 3-month contract, and a dollar price movement on Litecoin is almost 10%. And it's a little mind bending to wrap my mind around how to trade on the different contract. But regardless, I'm going to be reevaluating again in this area as to whether or not I want to abandon ship or if we can continue and fill this notch here. It looks like there's going to be some resistance as we fill this notch here in the volume profile. And once these moving average crosses, there may be an opportunity to get back in on this trade in this area. The internals are, kind of nice. You've got the MACD picking up, and we broke above these highs here. So I'm liking my trade, but I will have no problem abandoning ship below 118. Once we tag around 118, I'm done. I don't think I'm going to wait for the 110 level at this point because we're in dangerous territory. And whether you like to admit it or not, this is a form of knife catching. So we'll see. We'll see how that works.
I mean, if you don't mind me commenting, when we were just looking at the sort of broader Tether sort of proxies, the fascinating thing that I see going on in the market right now, number one, sentiment is extremely poor. And so I guess the question here is, when we look at these screens, what I see is, now reload zone, we've already, shown you the Bitcoin one. I think Ethereum could still come down a bit more, but things like this, NEO, right back. They've basically taken they remember that Bitcoin's up by 70% rally. This is making money is easy in this game. They've taken all of that back. Cripple, right back down into reload zones. ADA, the whole, remember our big hairy ones trade, right back down to the original bottom. Here's your Litecoin, and I was so impressed with this. This is the Tether proxy, so a little different than its forwards. But, I guess just the way I look at this is always ask yourself, what is the harder trade to take? Because usually the harder trade is the righter trade if you're trading. I would actually argue that it's harder to be a buyer right now than it is to be a seller. And this is actually a relatively, and when Thomas told me that he was hunting here, I was like, fuck, man, I mean, you're such a pro. Because really, the market at this point, if we risk, say, against this low here, or even against this bottom here, whatever, the market is actually defining our risk window as that, right? Let's say you bought right here, boom. There's your risk window. And, you can see this reload zone up here. Maybe this is a kick-ass harmonic and we're rallying back up here. So that means that the potential reward is something like, let's just even go here. And this is what we need to hunt for, where the risk box is substantially smaller than the very realistic. All this is just a rally back up into reload zone. Wicks and tails like to be eaten, all that kind of stuff, right? The potential reward is substantially larger than the risk taken. It is damn difficult to force yourself to be in here buying against these. But I can even see original market structure. There's good old Ian's 88.6. I mean, talk about a fucking sick trade level, right? And I mean, that's basically where Thomas said he bought. And why does that not surprise me? I mean, you guys, all new people to the site, Thomas is a damn good trader. So the fact that he was telling me that he was hunting in here, what a shock. So I thought that was fascinating, and also coupled with the fact that the sentiment in the market right now is just like almost, jump out the window bearish. I kind of like the idea of these trade ideas working. But make no mistake about it, to be able to get in there and actually take an appropriate trade off of that, You need to have built your plan. You need to completely vet at what type of risk taker you are, which defines the amount of money you're going to throw at this trade. And then, what your stops are going to be. Not going to say this is easy peasy. And of course, Thomas is also telling you about trading Litecoin forward contracts on these derivatives markets, which is in essence a hurdle unto itself to get over psychological issues of dealing with the casino. So, our general comments about higher time frame, what is the trend, and how should you be, positioning yourself? Definitely a big caution flag. We're not in rip roaring bull, shoot fish in a barrel, easy peasy trading. If anything, for the newer people to trading, you're like, okay, we come into location. You saw that Litecoin right against the low end of the range. I think it's a great idea to be hunting for divergences in here. And you want to wait for nice little market structure signals. Give me a nice juicy W in here. And then the odds of success of the trade obviously go up, with which, to a certain degree, relieves the relative anxiety. So, you've just seen the gamut, right? From professional trader in their hunting levels, taking trades, understand you've got to have all your shit together to trade like Thomas. Our general commentary, newer site members, newer course members, newer participants in the market, go slowly and let's see a little more anecdotal evidence that, the bottom is actually in. But I thought that was a great commentary. Nice professional trade Mr. Bear is taking there. All right, so what are we we crossed the 10% threshold. That's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, 8.57% on Turtle BC.
Let's see how our breadth is reading here. Do we get massive jump out the window bearish levels here on our index? Come on, baby. Ooh, we're getting there. Short term's at 53. So, we're not, totally washed out here. I could see a little bit more. Maybe that's what has to happen over the weekend. But definitely like the idea that we're closer to the bottom than the top. And of course, we showed you, man, there's a lot of these coins that, just off of these tether instruments, a lot of them are coming into reload zones. Whether you like Mr. Happy and his BCC, this is a reload zone. Whether you like this Bitcoin Gold, whatever you call it, we're starting to actually now come into original double bottom levels. The Zcash still a bit, I put in a little W. It's basically in a reload zone. Even Dash has come back down to its original double bottom. And of course, NXT, I was in there buying a little bit of NXT recently. I like this in the double bottom. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so do we want to talk a little turtles, or where do we want to go next?
Should we talk about McAfee?
I suppose so. What's he up to these days? Did he get subpoenaed or something like that?
He just got a cease and desist by the NASAA, but yesterday he was tweeting about Bitcoin Private, and he said, I've been asked by my 52,000 plus supporters of Bitcoin Private to lead a cryptocurrency privacy movement. Is that what my followers want? So someone answered, can you get us on Binance? And I think Tyler Peterson is one of the guys with Bitcoin Private. I'm not 100% sure about that. But he replied and said, I can do you one better. Wait a few weeks for announcement. I think this might just be him shilling, and I haven't even taken a look at the Bitcoin Private chart.
I had to move this to...
I don't think I can.
Yeah, because it's not on Trex anymore. I had to take it off of there. I've got it on like a paper wallet right now.
I don't really know what would be doing one better than getting it listed on a big exchange.
I know you're not going to find it on there because I was like scrambling around. Where the fuck am I going to put this goddamn thing? Right. And I actually had to. I'll show you. I've got. I don't know whether I don't think I'm giving away any secret. Oh, what's all this?
Hit BTC might have it.
Where is it? Yeah, my crazy spreadsheet screen. Not that one. Too many screens, man. It's gonna blow up. I had to put it on here. I had to go to these guys, right? Their site, and I had to put it on a paper wallet. So I don't know. If you could find an exchange that this thing's trading on, and that's what these people are clamoring for, right? So they're like, well, we want a place to trade this fucking thing. Anyway, all right. So is there anything you wanted to add to that? Yeah, I don't have an account on HIT though. I got it. And somebody didn't Thomas, didn't you tell us? Somebody told us, they were like, holy Jesus, HitBit is a nightmare right now.
Yeah, something about their withdrawals going amiss. And I think back when I said something about HitBTC being an issue, everyone tried to withdraw and they were having issues with that for a couple weeks. But I think some people got their stuff off. Looks like DaVinci still has some of his on there, but they're still around.
On Trade Satoshi. I guess it's over there. Anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting you there on that, but you continue your thought.
I mean, that's it. It's just McAfee shilling. He's up to his same old crap, and who knows what. I mean, I would love to know what's considered better than getting a coin listed on a top exchange. So no idea what he means by that, or if Bitcoin private is even worth something worth buying at this point. I'd love if we could have a chart to take a peek at it, but
there it is. So it's on Trade. Can you see my screen?
You're not sharing on YouTube just yet.
Trade Satoshi. X rates system coin, and look at these crazy crosses. What the hell's TRY? X rates. Do you have exchange accounts on any of these? Look at this HitBit. She's done 900,000. So obviously they're playing there. So there you go. Maybe we shouldn't abandon HitBit just so quickly. You know, I suppose if you can, do your trade on HitBit or HIT or BTC, whatever the hell this is, then go and buy Bitcoin and then move your Bitcoin off to another exchange. Maybe that's a way to get around with the withdrawals issues.
Yeah, good idea. What else can we talk about? Bitcoin Cash was under $1,000. That was interesting to see.
I wonder if he's going to be subject to that market manipulation, because doesn't he like really manipulate the price of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah, I think it's through Bitmain and all the miners that they have. He's probably been doing some market manipulation. I think they even, I don't have the news article offhand, but from memory, I recall something about them deciding to stop mining Bitcoin, and they decided to just mine Bitcoin Cash because, well, that's what, Roger Ver only supports his Bitcoin Cash, and they missed out on something like $300 million in profit in a day because they turned off all their miners, and the other pools picked up the slack, and within a day, nothing actually ended up going wrong, and the Bitcoin network did what it was supposed to do. So his, whatever nefarious idea he had to turn off his miners and hurt the Bitcoin network, it didn't do anything. Now, if he had done that in December or January, I think it would probably have a better impact. So, but, the problem was they were making too much money on mining fees and processing transactions, so it didn't make sense for them to shut it down. But he still did lose a good amount of money by not doing that. The other thing that I would love to see in terms of regulation or even an investigation into the initial launch of Bitcoin Cash on Coinbase. I mean, that thing started taking off days before the announcement that Coinbase was going to stick it on there. And I mean, it smelled like insider trading, and it was really annoying to see that this thing almost more than doubled before the thing even launched. So maybe the CFTC should look into him and Coinbase, but the Coinbase, I would hate to see something bad happen to Coinbase, because unfortunately it's almost like they're the leader in this space, and whenever some coin or there's some rumor of something being listed on Coinbase, it takes off even more than a rumor or even an actual listing on Binance or Bithumb in South Korea. It's whether we like to acknowledge it or not, they're the giant in this industry, and it's really in most of our best interests to make sure that nothing bad happens to them unless there's someone else to catch all of the fallout that comes from losing a
You're
giant
not
like that.
gonna. Next thing you're gonna say is they're too big to fail.
I mean, unfortunately, they are, right? I mean, we can't argue with that.
Okay. All right. So just a quick update for everybody. TRI activity. Anybody who's following the account, we got filled on another stink bid overnight. This time on Abby. And actually, I do like it when I report my stink bid fills, and some of our veterans go, "Oh, I like that trade. Oh, I like that trade." So that's always a good thing. But if you can see my screen, just FYI for the community, I'm not certain whether we got a double off of this rally. Doesn't quite look like it, but nonetheless, Abby's treated us very, very well in the past. I looked at the order book when she came down here, and I wanted to get some on this double bottom. We had that bid working for a while, and it just got filled overnight, so I was pleased about that. And you can see she's just basically sitting there. If you want to join me, you're more than welcome. So I do notice, I think Joshua was even saying he's got a bid working at this gap right here at 81. We got filled at 84 here. So there's an idea for you to chew on if you're in the market looking to buy. And then I wanted to, I'm very tempted. I actually think I would, I'm going to go pull the trigger. If this is a daily chart, if this actually forms a railroad tracks here and we get a buy signal on the open of the candle this afternoon, I think I'm going to go buy some of this guy because you can see nice reload zone right down in here. Below value, we got a nice little divergence working here on MACD. Willie technically stupid, and OBV actually doesn't look too discouraging. It's interesting how we're trying to form this railroad tracks here. I'd like to see this finish the day like this, and if we tick up through the top here, I'll get a bid working on that guy. So there's a couple ideas for the community to chew on. If you are in an accumulation mode, feel free to join me. Of course, none of these are pound the table, all nibbling away. I love when I wake up in the morning and I see guys like Kevin. Oh, I got a little nibble fill here, a little nibble fill there. I love that kind of approach to the altcoin trading. So a couple ideas for you to chew on. Oh God, do we have to talk about him now? Oh,
no, I want to leave everyone with a message before we end the daily brief. And that would be, this is a perfect example of what not to be. If you all go on to be successful, amazing traders and make tons and tons of money, just don't be like this. You know, this guy has the biggest ego I've ever seen, and making a lot of money and being successful in life, it's hard not to get high on your horse, or however that saying goes. I totally botched that. But anyway, I mean, listen to what this guy says and just cringe. And if you do cringe, then that's great. And just remember that moment, that when you get to be where you ultimately want to be, please be humble. I'm going to play this if you don't mind, Brian.
The only problem is if you do play these things, YouTube might get pissed off at us. If it's just very short, they won't catch it.
Okay.
And I'll say this quite frankly, because I've got more money than your country.
There you go. I hope everyone heard that. Don't be like this guy. He goes, I've got more money than your country. This guy was presenting in Africa. And just a piece of work. This is the guy that claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Fun.
Yeah, well, you know what the old saying reminds me. I used to have a client who used to always say, "Those who the gods wish to destroy first make drunk with power." And that's this guy really is setting himself up, isn't he? And the worst part about it is you could be like a guy like Dav sitting on all the fucking money in the world and just be quiet, right? And you don't have to be arrogant and an asshole. I did notice, Dav, though, earlier you were saying that you're pushing around markets to get your fills. I don't like that. And of course, you got to remember, Dav, Big Brother is watching us here. So, be a good citizen. Let's not head down that evil road, but definitely, I wouldn't be surprised, guys, in like 5-10 years, we're going to hear nightmare stories out of this guy. And whenever I see stuff like this, I always think of my old clients. They used to always say, those who the gods wish to destroy first make drunk with power. So let's try and be humble. And you know, I'm not really anywhere near these kind of people, but I do see it sometimes in myself, and I really have to check myself and make sure, because every once in a while I'll start getting a little bit of an attitude, and it's just like, Brian, got to stay humble, right? So yeah, excellent message for everybody. You don't have to be like this gentleman, and my hunch is this story will end badly for him. He's gonna piss off the wrong person, and the worst part about it is in places like some places of the world, we'll just say it that, a guy might just say, you know what, I go and remove him from the equation, please, and he just gets mysteriously removed from the planet. So we don't need that kind of shit. So
it was nice to see Vitalik standing up to him at the South
Korean.
That
was beautiful, eh? And the thing is Vitalik's probably one of the only guys in this space that actually has both the chutzpah and the actual credibility to actually stand up to these clowns, right? Vitalik could stand up to Ver and put him in his place, and this guy. But none of us could stand up. This guy would just shit on us, right?
I have more money than your country.
Yeah, and he's just asking for trouble when he says stuff like that. That's too bad. But oh well, what can you do? And and the weird part about it is he's not. Do you remember there was a really good book back in last century called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was like, if you took any salesman's job, it was like required reading. And this guy's doing everything, everything that they say in that book not to do. Oh, well, what can you do? Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing, eh? Yeah. But, in a weird sort of way, and I it sucks. I think, as in my 40, 50 years living on this planet, I've actually learned that there actually has to be, like the Koreans. It's interesting. We haven't talked about Korea today and all what's going on there and how that will influence crypto. But the Koreans, they're sort of a yin and yang kind of principle. In a weird sort of way, it's almost like it kind of has to be about an equal amount of good and evil in this world. So really, it's just a choice at the end of the day, which camp you want to fight for. Hopefully, you guys all know which camp I'm fighting for. Anyway. Getting verklempt, getting choked up. Anyway, so on that note, let's all fight for the good camp, and let's be good people, and let's go out there and be and like I say to all my course members and Quinn, I think of you every time I say this. We want to be emissaries of good behavior. It's all right to be enthusiastic about a story. It's all right to be rah-rah crypto. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We just need to act appropriately.
And professionally.
Exactly. All right. On that note, why don't you all have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. We didn't get Julian to pop in here today. I hope Julian, maybe you can join us again. But it was awesome to have you on the call today, and can't wait to see what his latest RSI altcoin reading is. And actually, what I want to do is wait until he gives us a buy signal. That's when we'll bring him on. All right, guys, you have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. All the best. Here's this idea that I'm chewing on to add to the portfolio here through today. Something for you to chew on as well. Have yourselves a great day. Be emissaries of good behavior. Make TRI proud in the world. Let's go and change it for the better. All the best. And bye.